Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of The Dunker Spot. We are part of 342 Productions. I am your host, Nekias Duncan, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Steve Jones Jr. Steve, Happy New Year. How are you?
Aha, feeling good, feeling great. Happy to be here, excited to be here. Thank you, Dunkers, for once again embracing your bounce. Dunker Nation, let's ride. YouTube, hi, hello, smash that like button. We get 250 likes. Nekias will add a second YouTube comment to the segment next week. But yeah, man, it's time to hoop it up.
It is indeed time to hoop it up. First YouTube episode of 2025. Excited about that. Excited to talk some hoops. We have a lot of movement happening / on the verge of happening. We got Jimmy Butler's stuff to talk about. Phoenix making some lineup changes. We got the first all-star returns, which means I get to yell for like 16 minutes straight. I'm not going to yell for 16 minutes straight. That's very aggressive. I'm not going to do that. But a lot of things to talk about. Fun hoop happened over the weekend. Dealing with some contenders or some contender hopefuls at the very least. I'm excited about this one. Let's talk some hoop. Let's start with the mess. We will start with Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat seeming to be on the way to a divorce. Jimmy Butler is officially, with an asterisk, requesting a trade after a loss to the Indiana Pacers. Jimmy Butler was asked post-game, about how he's feeling. He mentioned not having his joy, and I think it was Tim Reynolds of the AP that asked him, "Hey, what do you want to see happen to kind of turn things around?" And Jimmy Butler said, and I quote, "What do I want to see happen? I want to see me get my joy back from playing basketball, wherever that may be. We'll find out here pretty soon. I'm happy here off the court, but I want to be back to somewhat dominant. I want to hoop, and I want to help this team win. Right now, I'm not doing that." And the follow-up was, do you feel like you can find that joy on the court here? And just a very stern, probably not. And I was like, oh, that's a lot. This is things starting to hit the fan a little bit with this Heat situation. Again, heading into the year, no contract extension for Jimmy Butler. And that was always going to loom over the season to some degree. I think the worst case scenario was it blowing up like this before we even hit the trade deadline, much less getting to the offseason to figuring things out. And then a little bit later, Jimmy Butler suspended by the Miami Heat for 7 games, which coincides with a West Coast road trip. And the Heat released a statement on that saying, we have suspended Jimmy Butler for 7 games for multiple instances of conduct detrimental to the team over the course of the season, and particularly the last several weeks. Through his actions and statements, he has shown he no longer wants to be a part of this team. Jimmy Butler and his representative here, have indicated that they wish to be traded. Therefore, we will listen to offers.
It's kind of wild considering Pat Riley had just said, "Hey, we're not trading Jimmy Butler."
We're not trading. Yeah. And Jimmy said, "Oh, yeah." And representative said, "Oh, yeah."
Well, I think the hidden part was Jimmy feeling like someone was saying he was not playing hard, and that was seemingly the camel, or the straw that brought the camel's back to a degree. But I mean, this is kind of the messiness of these type of scenarios where like everyone throws the word divorce around. It's not a pretty thing. It's a looming deal where both sides are realistic about what's happening. You're hoping for a positive conclusion. The tricky part is like they can choose to work with each other. They could choose to work through it, or you saw with the Clippers, this might just be it. Like Paul George, yep, you got to walk. Like the days of assuming that star player wants to leave, okay, we're getting a return. You can't bake that in anymore because there's only so many trades you can make. There's only so many trades you can do. There's only so many places you can go to. And while Jimmy said everyone, okay, what makes the most sense for Miami? What kind of flexibility do you want? So are you just going to swing for the fences while you still have them and then prepare for the next generation? I don't see them tying themselves up with a bunch of salary going forward and losing flexibility on top of the era ending. If you're Jimmy Butler, yeah, you want to go hoop. Where are you going to go that's going to want you to hoop long term to a degree? Is it short term they're looking for? Is it there's a lot of moving parts here, and all of it sounds messy. Hurt people, and I don't know if anyone is sitting here without hurt feelings in this scenario.
Yeah, none of this feels good. And I think this is the downside to the gamble that Miami made. I think very clearly heading into this past offseason, Jimmy Butler wanted to be extended. He wanted his money. He has talked a lot throughout the course of his Heat tenure about how much he loves it here, how the Heat have embraced him, how the fan base has embraced him. He wants to retire here. You look at the resume itself. 2 finals appearances and another Eastern Conference Finals trip, which Jimmy takes a 3 with 20 seconds left against Boston that just rims out. And that could have been another finals appearance if that goes in. I understand Jimmy Butler hey, this is the last one. Let's get this locked in. Naturally, you want as much money as you can. So if you want the max, it would be understandable for him to want that. But even if it's a little bit less than that, ultimately he wanted the level of security that he feel like he's earned. He has, I say this complimentary, he's kind of overachieved with this Heat team. And he has turned into an absolute monster for multiple postseasons, again, including these finals trips. So I understand him saying, hey, give me my money. Let's lock this in. Let's do this. And for Miami, I get them saying, you have turned up in the postseason. We appreciate you. However, how much of regular season Jimmy have we gotten? If we are committing this kind of money, you are 34, 35. By the end of the contract, you're going to be 37, 38, somewhere in that range. Are you still going to be performing at that kind of level? I don't know. And you zoom out and look at the rest of the East. If we do lock into Jimmy Bam Hero, is that enough to compete with what Boston has turned themselves into and will likely still be? Are we up here with Cleveland? And we see what kind of jump that they've made this year. New York, the moves that they've made. Philadelphia hasn't really worked out to this point of the season because of all the early season injuries. But in general, that's Embiid, that's Maxey, that's PG. I can understand Miami saying, I don't know if we want to just lock you into this right now. At the very least, let's get through the offseason. I think that's partly why Pat Riley had to play, once again, call for Jimmy to play more, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think that was particularly handled well, considering some of the off-court stuff Jimmy had to deal with last year. So it was very clear by Miami-based reporting that message and how it was delivered from Pat Riley was not super well received. But zooming out, I understand why Miami's let's just wait and see. Let's get through this season. Or if we do want to make a trade, let's at least get to the deadline to see what happens. But this was always the risk. You think about how the Jimmy Butler era ended in Minnesota in particular. You remember the practice and the third strings, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that was also somewhat contract-based. That was heading into a contract year for Jimmy Butler. And now we have this where, Tyler's being asked about the Jimmy stuff. Bam's being asked about the Jimmy stuff. Naturally, Spo gets asked about it, and he was very diplomatic. Hey, I'm not the clickbaity coach. You're not getting anything out of me. And now this cloud looms even larger. And it just stinks for all parties involved, I feel like. Because to your point, I don't know what the value play is for Jimmy Butler at this stage. We know how good he is and how good he can be in a postseason setting, but this is pretty much a 1+1. I think, $52 million on the player option if he opts in? Do you want to be on the hook for that if you're the team trading for Jimmy? And as such, am I giving up an A+ trade package to bring in Jimmy Butler? I don't know. And again, to your point, Steve, if I'm Miami, I don't want to just take in a whole bunch of bad salaries just to get the dude out of here. It's just an unfortunate situation. And just thinking about what Jimmy has meant for Miami and what this era has been, I feel for the fans in this. It's been kind of interesting watching the fan base kind of pick sides to where they understand Jimmy, or it is, hey, big dog, the Heat were the Heat before you got here. They're going to be the Heat after you get here. Why are you talking about your role, et cetera? It's that part's been interesting to track. But it's really unfortunate, honestly. Even if it was going to end, I hate that it looks like it's going to end like this for the Heat and Jimmy. This is just, it's messy when it didn't have to be.
How can you avoid the mess, considering the passion of everyone involved and the culture of the Heat? How can you avoid the mess? We have countless examples of this happening in Miami. You can ask Tim Hardaway, Alonzo Mourning, Dwayne Wade, who has a statue.
Yeah. Dwayne Wade left and came back.
Shaq, this is part of the process. Tough love. Mm-hmm. You can debate all you want, but Pat Riley does things the Pat Riley way. Jimmy Butler has loved and received that until, hey, man, you also aren't taking care of me. I can only take so much, and now we're here. So who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen? But yeah, absolutely saying, yeah, you're not going on this West Coast road trip, buddy. We'll see in a few days. It was quite the move. And now, if they're going to play back and forth, it can become a very petty matchup. You hope that doesn't happen, but it is what it is. And now everyone gets to trade Jimmy Butler everywhere they want to.
This is also true. I think the one bit of criticism, I guess I would levy, I think, and we've had multiple conversations about the Heat on this podcast and our watch parties, etc., to where like I have been generally lower on the, I guess, like where they rank in the East hierarchy than you have. To where I think it has taken some they've had to hit their absolute ceiling to make these kind of runs, which again, to their credit, they have. But like heading into a year, I have felt better about 2 or 3 teams in the East, pretty much at minimum, than I have about Miami heading into like the last 2 or 3 seasons. And so for me, person with a microphone, not person actually making multi-million-dollar decisions, I think if you weren't going to give Jimmy Butler the money and or long-term security that he wanted, for me, it would have made more sense to just rip the Band-Aid off and let's try to open this up in the summer if we weren't going to do this versus taking this risk to get to the deadline or get through the season with the Jimmy thing hovering over.
Can I raise my hand?
Of course.
Sounds great. Sounds good. So you tell me how the wombo combo of Pat Riley's comments about Jimmy Butler with also the news of the Miami Heat are willing to listen to trade offers for Jimmy Butler. They have not found anything. Now Jimmy Butler arrives to camp. How's that come out?
That probably gets even messier. Honestly,
we're arriving at the same place to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds great. Yeah, in hindsight, should have dealt him in the offseason, started out fresh. That's cool. What if you didn't get the deal you wanted? And now we all know you want to trade Jimmy Butler. And you can't get the deal you want because we all know you want to trade Jimmy Butler. And you know who else knows? Mm-hmm. Jimmy Butler knows. So now instead of the good Jimmy Butler that you got up until December 16th, you deal with this at the start.
Mm-hmm.
There's an element of maybe it'll work out. There's an element of loyalty. You can say it's right or wrong, but that plays a role in it.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
The Miami Heat have been looking for, their whale. They've been trying to add to what they found. Jimmy was a key part of that. Now it's okay. How do we find this next piece while also taking care of Jimmy in case maybe we got, maybe we got to pivot. Those are real scenarios. So I think I get it why people would say, yeah, in the offseason should have just knocked it out the park. Okay. If it doesn't align with what they want to do long term, why are we doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy's going to be playing for his next deal either way. Just a thought.
No, I think that's a fair thought and a fair level of pushback. Like, I guess I'll ask you this. Like, if they did decide, hey, we're going to do this earlier, they don't get a deal. Do you think it would have been easier for them to say, hey, just don't come to camp while we're dealing with this? Like, is that something that could be on the table for them? Or do you feel like that you're still just inviting a level of mess with something like that?
Well, what's going to be your reasoning for just keeping him away from the team?
I feel like we've seen that before. We're like, hey, just stay away while we work with your reps to get you somewhere else.
Then you got to do it. You can't do it.
Like, I figured I'd ask on that front, but like, it's, again, to your point, a lot easier said than done, which is why I prefaced it that way. But it just, now with it hitting the fan now, like, it feels like they kind of have to nail the trade during this trip while he's away, if they can. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Like, I think it was Anthony Chang of the Miami Herald that reported that Miami would be willing to bring Jimmy Butler back post-suspension if they don't find a deal, which, not saying the reporting is wrong. Like, I'm really curious to see what that would actually look like. Because that doesn't seem ideal.
In a perfect logical world, no, it doesn't. Mm-hmm. Do we remember when Jimmy Butler and Spo had their spat?
On the bench? Do you need like, hey, big dog?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What happened after that?
I want to say Jimmy just hooped.
I'm not saying it's the most realistic or the most ideal part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I can understand it.
Even then, that's like, heat of the moment in, I think, close game at the time versus if, the Heat statement is true, like multiple weeks of stuff behind the scenes that we don't know about that then percolates with, I don't know. I guess I feel like I'm kind of on the island with the New Orleans game. Like, he didn't shoot a lot, and like the one-legged three was kind of funny, but like ultimately he was working his way back from an illness. And it's not like Jimmy hasn't had like a low shot attempt game before with Miami, independent of this stuff. The Indy game was a little rougher though, so I couldn't really. It was like, hey, big dog, you can't do that. And like even like the reference to roll is kind of interesting because it's not like he doesn't touch the ball. And like we've talked about the off-ball usage with Jimmy this year anyway. Like setting more screens, they've been effective. And again, he still gets to command a good bit of the offense. So like, I don't know, like that part felt kind of weird to me. But if they are able to work him back in, again, like which version of Jimmy are you getting?
That part I can't tell you. But what I will say, there was a key part in the quote you read at the start where he said, I want to help this team win. It's in there somewhere. Mm-hmm. I think you have two sides that are looking for leverage, that are playing with fire to a degree, and are both upset. That's where the pick a side thing, I don't necessarily get down with that because, if you're Miami, okay, let's try this, hope it works. You might get burned. If you have a plan and the other person's not on the same page with you, you might get burned. But at the end of the day, Jimmy Butler kind of needs Miami's help to kind of send him somewhere. Now, he did say he wanted to trade him anywhere. This is where it gets tricky. So you can't see Jimmy in Miami ever again. You think this is it? Over. Done.
It feels cooked to me. I would like to be wrong because I enjoy Jimmy Butler in Miami just as a concept. But like the way that it's kind of broken down over the past week, it feels tough. And it's not like in this stretch of time away, post-suspension, et cetera, they're now going to come back to the negotiating table. It's like, well, actually, we do want to give you 3 for $140. Like, I don't think that's happening. I don't even know if Jimmy would accept that, even if it was on the table for whatever reason. So I don't, like, it feels like this is just it.
Okay.
Like to steal one of your lines. Like it's kind of hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube once it's,
This is true. Now let's talk about it. Let's talk about my favorite thing, transaction talk. So where do we think Jimmy Butler lands? Because Golden State was like, we're good. If I go back to the preferred list, Dallas would have to trade 98% of their roster to make that work. Phoenix has been the one that everyone talks about. There's one massive issue. Bradley Beal has a no-trade clause, and the Miami Heat are like, not so much. So we are quickly running out of places while we're running out of time. Like, is there a dark horse? Is there like a Memphis? Is there like a somewhere else? But here's the other part. What team feels the need that they need to go get Jimmy Butler? Not that Jimmy Butler can't help you. Not that playoff Jimmy isn't a real thing. But if you look at the standings, which team is saying, you know what? We're in trouble. We need Jimmy Butler.
The we're in trouble part, I don't think I see that. Like, I think the closest to that would be Golden State. And as you referenced the Athletic report that Golden State's kind of mum on Jimmy. We'll see how real that is if the Warriors don't turn some stuff around over the next couple of weeks. But the Warriors will probably be the closest. Gosh darn it. Are you proud of that?
Extremely.
That's amazing. That's one of one. So like the Warriors will probably be the closest thing to that. Outside of that, like you mentioned Dallas, and that would get tough from a salary perspective, but like Dallas is good, and they're eventually going to get Luka back. I think Memphis is the spot, honestly. Like I think they have the combination of the salaries that aren't super long-term for Miami, that you can make that work, that are also like serviceable role pieces that could help that can help Bam/Hero right now without long-term commitment. You also have some rookie scale guys that obviously Memphis values, but like may be willing to part with since they would, in theory, like just have their top 7, top 8 together. Like we talked about the G.G. Jackson rookie season last year. He's been hurt for most of this one. Like I don't think G.G. Jackson would break a deal for Memphis if they were trying to get Jimmy Butler, just as an example there, or Vince Williams, as the wing room in general has gotten a little bit healthier for Memphis. So like Memphis feels like the spot to me. I think Houston's been kind of quiet on the Jimmy front too. Like I think that makes sense, and that'll be easy for them to put the salaries and stuff together. They also have the similar bit of we have interesting young players that aren't part of the main core that we could toss into a deal if we want to sweeten things up and not give up picks. But if you're Houston, like this very much feels like, hey, we were just outside the play-in. We're top 3 in the West. I don't think we have to do anything right now. So Memphis is probably the one.
Does Memphis want to pay the tax? Do they want to take this program they've built up through the ups and downs, through the highs and lows, go get Jimmy Butler, and then put yourself in tax trouble in the next 1 or 2 years?
I think they're equipped to do so.
Are we sure?
I would say yes. Like, I think looking at their top 3, just in a vacuum, Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, like, I think Jimmy Butler very much fits into that core. And I think Memphis has kind of proven over the last few years, like, they can, if they do get into tax trouble and they aren't able to add on, like, the mid-level or something, how many guys have kind of come through later in the draft or undrafted or whatever and kind of filled rotation minutes for them? Like, I think they've shown they can also just kind of round out their roster in a way as well. And to your earlier point about who does Jimmy Butler like save, or like we are broken in some way, Jimmy Butler will fix that type beat. Through the Memphis context, I think we both just kind of had eyes on the half court offense because they've been top 10 in offense and defense pretty much all year long. The transition offense is driving a lot of why their offensive rating is as high as it is. And so adding Jimmy should help that, if not solve that. You can toss in some shooting concerns if you want, but like, again, with the way that he is willing to operate a pick and roll, also screen for guys, willing cutter, I think he can slot into the Memphis ethos without much of a problem. Especially if you are baking in, if Jimmy gets out of Miami, 2, gets to another good team while also fighting for next contract, or if he's going to lock in the player option the next year and a half, you would envision getting like the best version of Jimmy in that kind of spot. And so like this feels like a risk that Memphis can take. I could be wrong, but like at least that's how I would read the situation right now.
Okay. Just want to get your piece on that because they might be willing to make that splash, but we'll see.
Okay.
To me, I wouldn't be surprised if trade happens.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell teams are starting to feel a little bit of the season and where we need to go. What do we need to do next? But, if you're Miami, we don't want to take a long-term money. There's always a deal that can be made. And if we have some version of flexibility, someone's going to want to play in Miami at some point. Mm-hmm. I think it gets tricky.
Yeah. So we shall see. We shall see. Speaking of one of the teams that was linked to Jimmy Butler, or has been linked to them, from Chris Haynes late last night, the Phoenix Suns planning to change their starting lineup. Bradley Beal and Yusuf Nurkic heading to the bench. Ryan Dunn and Mason Plumlee. Plumlee did start. Mason Plumlee and Ryan Dunn did start last game, but expected to just be in the starting lineup moving forward. So I am intrigued. Have some numbers on that front, but before getting into some of the numbers of it, how do you feel about the lineup change coming? And in general, where are you at on Phoenix?
How do you feel about it, buddy?
I understand why Phoenix is trying to jostle some stuff with the lineups. For me, this feels more personnel based than like lineup based with Phoenix. Like, I think they're just trying to thread a really tough needle. And like the offense it's been solid. I think they're 11th in offensive rating per clean and glass. So like just outside the top 10. But like the offense hasn't been world beating good this year. Or at the very least, they haven't hit that level consistently enough. And a lot of that is Bradley Beal's been out, KD's been out. And it's kind of tough to build that consistency. In addition to, we talked about a little bit earlier in the season, Phoenix shifting to more pick and roll. Just kind of shifting how they want to run their offense a little bit. if the offense isn't going to be top 5 level, and you're looking at a defensive side of the ball where, frankly, it doesn't feel like they have enough. Like, it just feels like they're in a weird spot defensively. When they do size up and they have one of their true fives on the floor, it's been a lot of drop from Dirk. And when he does play a little bit higher, that get a little dicey. It's been drop from Mason Plumlee. When he gets up to the level, that's been better than Nurk. But then who's on the back end? When it's Kevin Durant, I feel pretty good about it because I have, as we said in the last part, like I've enjoyed the Kevin Durant defense experience for the most part of this year. But if teams move KD around and your low man is now Devin Booker or it's Bradley Beal, or even if it's Ryan Dunn or someone else, like it gets dicey at the rim. And then when they downsize and they go to some of these KD at the 5 lineups, they're just so small everywhere outside of KD. They don't get enough stops with that grouping. And so, like, I don't know how much is solved, I guess is my thing. I think that's part of why they are in the Jimmy Butler discussions. And in general, I think Phoenix is going to be a team that's mentioned quite a bit to try to find something on the margins to help. It's just inherently going to be tough to do with them being a second apron team. But that's where I kind of start with Phoenix. I understand trying to make the change and trying to do some stuff, but it feels like a too small when you're small and you're not getting enough for the bigs to kind of compensate for what you have in front.
This team started 8-2 this year, by the way.
They did.
With all these pieces. I think the injuries and the timing of the injuries have made it pretty rough. So without Bradley Beal in the lineup, I believe 3 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, 5 and 5 because he was out early. I forgot about that. Without Devin Booker, 1 and 4. Without Kevin Durant, 1 and 9.
So they had the big losing streak once KD went down earlier in the year.
Yeah. So this is a team that's trying to figure out how to maximize this. And it felt like they had to a degree early on, but now you're having to shuffle a deck, reshuffle, put people back in, get reintegrated. And so all that offense that you had early on, does it feel the same? Do you have the plus? And I find it funny, a little funny, slightly funny, because everyone was like, hey, they just need a real point guard. And then you realize when you have a real point guard, you're not as big on the court as you could have been.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've just alternated your vision after the addition of a real point guard. I just found that a little funny. My thing is, okay, what does this fix? How many minutes does Bradley Beal get? And does Bradley Beal just ultimately close? I think the bigger indictment, like Beal's going to get most of the headline talk. The bigger thing is the Nurk point where they're like, hey, man, what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's where it's like, okay, how do we accomplish a stronger goal there? Did you need to go with both, I guess is my question. Because even as good of a defensive prospect as Ryan Dunn is, I don't know if his screen navigation is better than Royce O'Neal's. And so if you're going to be in a drop and now pick and pop, late switch, are you prepared to do both of those things?
Mm-hmm.
Offensively, you now have to make shots. Like, it just feels like a lot of the tempo and the pace and the cutting kind of went away. And now it's just pick and roll, go get one, which is everything you wanted Phoenix to fix from last year. And so I'm trying to figure out what's the direction, because you now had 2 coaches trying to figure it out, trying different things, ending up in the same spot to a degree. And what's that look like? You know, because you go back to that Indiana game, and it's just poor Ryan Dunn started the game running around trying to guard everyone.
And poor Ryan Dunn, dog. Tyrese got him. Andrew Demhart got him. Like, again, like, it's not necessarily an indictment of him, but it's just, in that game in particular, it felt like a lot of drop. It's very buddy and hey, let's just hang back. You do your best to navigate. If you're defending a non-shooter and you're one pass away, like, at least provide a little bit of presence. But otherwise, we want to keep this 2-on-2. And that kind of reflects in, like, their opponent shot profile. Like, they don't allow a large percentage of shots at the rim. I think they're like 10th in opponent 3-point rate. So like in terms of what kind of shots do you want to give up, Phoenix still ranks pretty highly in those. But if the navigation ain't there and you can get into clean mid-range looks, then like what are you really doing? And if the penetration is as such, then now we're just opening up pops, or if someone else lower on the floor feels like they now need to help, now the help's coming late. And so maybe you're not giving up a large share of threes, but the quality of three that you are giving up is really high and within the flow. And as we've seen, even this year, in which like offensive rating across the league is kind of down, is down from last year, you give an offense a steady diet of good looks, like you're gonna get lit up. To that point, Steve, you know what teams are shooting on corner threes against the Phoenix Suns this year?
What are they shooting?
45.6% per clean in the glass. I don't think that's a sustainable number, but one, as in a shock to no one, that is the worst figure in the NBA. But two, it does kind of speak to like the rhythm point and like when they're giving these up and how they're giving these up. Like that's so much strain on Ryan Dunn to get back to the central point. And even if you bring Royce in, you feel like he's better at screen navigation. That's also just going to be a lot of pressure on Royce as well. And I feel like we'll end up 2 weeks away from me repeating my Royce O'Neal point to where I love him defensively. But like, if he's got to save your defense, that's not a fair spot for him to be in.
I have my concerns. Because to your point, defensively, I don't know if it's just the scheme. But even if you have Ryan Dunn, you're going to be, switching 1 through 4, right? How many people do you trust to navigate these actions? Are you clean and communicating on those switches? Are you up to touch? Are you active? Are you physical? Now pick and roll. Are you drop? Are you navigating? Now, outside of just pick and roll and scheme, can you keep the ball in front? When you get beat off the bounce, how clean are the rotations? How clean is the next rotation? And then offensively, are you in a bind with pick and roll where teams are just okay with drop? We talked about this in the playoffs.
Sure did.
Like, we're either going to give you drop Bradley Beal, or we're going to put 2 on the ball against you, Devin Booker, Mason Plumlee, and make some short roll reads. I mean, you can game it, empty corner, you can put Kevin Durant over there, you have the personnel, but the problem is you're building a database for teams to try and counter, and your tempo is getting worse and worse. So the mix of everything that you have with the versatility of your 3 players is once again not where it probably should be to maximize things. And you got to get that back. I mean, it's a rough part of the season. Every team goes through adversity. They've lost, 7 of the last 10? Same team beat Golden State, beat Spurs, beat Denver. You know what I mean? So there's flashes of it in there. Did they say who the lineup is if both those people are out?
That's what I've been like trying to sort through, because like Tyus Jones has started. We've also seen them just go with like Bill Booker in the backcourt. So like I'm
assuming Tyus.
I haven't seen the
right.
That was my assumption, but like to your point, like I haven't seen like the exact. This is the 5-man unit now. But quickly to your point, just pull this up on Second Spectrum really quick. Talking about Phoenix's defense, 23rd in terms of points per possession allowed against closeouts, 28th against drives. To your keep the ball in front and just the general recovery front from there. And then just into the lineup stuff, the Jones, Beal, Booker, Durant, Nurkic lineup, which funny enough, so they lost their minutes. They were outscored by 40 points in 112 minutes, minus 17.7 net rating. Both of those numbers are bad. Suns were 7-3 in those games.
Yeah, that's the number that matters. Thank you for making my point. Let's get this on-off business out of here in 2025.
I mean, that just means that the other lineups were better. But no, it's funny. And even to your point about how they started the season, I feel like when we talked about the Suns and their start, we talked about their defense. And so for it to fall to this degree, sentinel of the injuries, but they have to recapture some of the stuff that they found. And like now making these lineup changes, we will see if that's a shot in the arm. Like obviously there's the Bradley Beal talk swirling in relation to Jimmy Butler, et cetera. But like, so they're in a tough spot.
I mean, they just need to figure out how to get that lineup going. And then can we play KD at the 5, hypothetically? Do we have enough wings out there to have a double prong lineup to be able to get that done? Offensively, can we get our tempo up, please? Can we get back to like cutting with some sort of pace, executing our movement, getting a stagger, now playing out of it? Kind of feels like, well, let's hope things happen. I think if Phoenix cleans that up, they'll be fine. Can I mention real quickly before we continue on, the Bradley Beal, the chatter that's going around. Well, hey, Phoenix trying to get Bradley Beal to waive that no trade clause. Maybe they slide him to the bench. I don't think it's that easy, folks. He still has to want to go to the place.
Yeah. Can I quickly raise my hand? If it was that easy, why didn't Washington just do that before they moved them? Which the broader question is like, why did Washington negotiate a no? But that's that's neither here nor there.
Leave the Wizards alone.
I will. Shout out Alex Starr. But yeah, the starting lineup, they start the year with minus 40 and 112 minutes. If it is Tyus Jones, Devin Booker, Ryan Dunn, Kevin Durant, and Mason Plumlee, they have only played 14 minutes together, and they have won those minutes by 13 points. So I could understand want to see a larger sample on that, but that is a minuscule sample in terms of minutes. Overall this year, Beal, Booker, and Durant are minus 32 and 221 minutes together. It's about a minus 6 net rating. With Booker and Durant on the floor without Bradley Beal, it is a plus 31 and 235 minutes, about a plus 7 net rating. So some numbers to complement some of the lineup stuff, but I am intrigued to see what happens with Phoenix moving forward. Did you have any closing Suns thoughts before we move?
No, I do not. Hey, Nekias, you ready to talk about the NBA All-Star first returns?
Yes, we can talk about the NBA All-Star voting first fan returns. Mm-hmm. Naturally, fans accounting for half the votes, or half the pie here, 25% for the media, 25% for the players, and then the coaches handle the reserves. So, as of the first returns, your starters in the Western Conference via the fans would be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luka Doncic in the backcourt. In order of the votes received, Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, LeBron James in the front court. And in the Eastern Conference, your starters would be LaMelo Ball and Donovan Mitchell in the backcourt, Giannis, Jason Tatum, and Karl Anthony Towns in the front court. Giannis, your leading vote getter in the league this year.
Nekias, do you have any thoughts on this first return?
I do. I think one, Giannis, just the top vote getter, is not something that I expected. Top vote getter in the East, I would expect, but in the league at large is interesting. I would imagine in a year where, we just recently did all NBA stuff. So how I feel about the LeBron season, at least to a degree. So far, he's been very good, but not quite that for me yet. A world in which LeBron's still having this season and he's third among the Western front court players in votes is just really stark to me. I'm so used to LeBron just being one all the time, or at least 1 and 2 with someone. So it was interesting to see Giannis just gets that pop and Jokic getting that pop in the West at large. So that's probably the first thing. Second thing for me.
Oh wait, before we get to your second thing.
Okay.
All right, easy there, cowboy. Before you try and swerve, bend that corner. Whoa. Let's slow it down a little bit. All right, bud.
Okay.
So for me, I pretty much thought, okay, what are people going to do when they have to choose between Kevin Durant and LeBron James? And they kind of just said, well, A, we'll vote for Jokic, and B, we'll vote for both of them. And so Anthony Davis, Victor, maybe you'll be there, but you won't be voted in the starters. The West guards, once again, feel locked down. I do wonder if Steph's just going to make a surge with Luka being out. It ends up being Shai and Steph, which could make things very interesting.
Sure would.
I think the East front court, you can just go ahead and put that in Sharpie. It's going to be Giannis, Tatum, Cat. And the East guards, Donovan Mitchell. I told the world last time we did the All-Star breakdown. I said Donovan would get these votes. Very close between him and Dame. Do you have any thoughts on LaMelo Ball being the lead vote getter in the Eastern Conference?
Yes, I do have thoughts on LaMelo being the lead vote getter among guards. One, the youth love LaMelo. And in general, he's a very good and very fun player. He is an easy person to root for with that kind of size and that kind of playmaking. And hey, I will pull from 35 and I will do so without really leaving my feet like that. Here's this 20-foot floater, etc. And he's averaging 30. Is he? I love the face here. It's easy to root for LaMelo. I think for me, as someone that's in the area, so like I can also just see and hear firsthand how people feel about the Hornets at large and also LaMelo. It's both cool for him and it's also like, please get it. Please get it because it is here for the taking for you. And that boils down to like more of the more boring stuff in basketball and how that's going to help the Hornets get more wins and stuff. We don't have to have that full-blown conversation, but it's just like the people love LaMelo. Through the context of like the rest of the guard race, like, do I think LaMelo's having a better season than like Mitchell and Brunson? And like, no, I wouldn't have LaMelo as a starter. So like, I do disagree with that part. And I also chuckled when I first saw it because I'm just like, the ratings are down and the league stinks because all people do are take a bunch of threes and we don't play defense no more. And the leading vote getter among guards in the East is someone that takes an ungodly amount of threes. And the defense is something that frustrates me immensely and has frustrated the last few Charlotte Hornets coaches that have been there. And so it's just kind of funny to like put those two things against each other in my brain.
Why are you putting them against each other? It's not true.
I mean, sure. I love the league, so I think that's apparent. But no, it's just funny to like hear that and then like see these results. It's like, okay, well, somebody, you know. But yeah, like, and in a vacuum, like I disagree. Like, I don't think he should be starting over Jalen Brunson, for example. And like looking at the gap in votes, like this is another year in which Jalen Brunson is behind a bunch of guards with like a significant gap, which is kind of tough. I'm going to be nicer this year. I feel like I just yelled at a bunch of fan bases last year. But yeah, like that part's just weird. But I guess we'll see if the LaMelo thing holds.
Well, I mean,
because if it,
we'll see about the returns, but I mean, there is also another portion of the pie. So that's where it gets interesting. I don't know how much the media is going to support LaMelo Ball's endeavor to be an all-star. So might be on the players. But go ahead, Nekias. I'm a little surprised. You're a little reserved in your usual talk about the first returns.
Because I'm trying not to like do the full blown thing.
With what?
I will
With
say,
what's the problem? What we got?
I mean, I guess like we just had the LaMelo example, but in general, I feel like I say this every year where the All-Star game and the All-Star accolade, it should matter or it shouldn't. And that should also inform how these votes go. Like, if we're not using players with like 6 or 7 All-Star games kind of just have the fast track to Hall of Fame, then like I would care less about LaMelo getting a vote over Jalen Brunson. You know what I mean? But like, since that is the reality that we are in, LaMelo hasn't been better than Jalen Brunson this year. And thus, I don't believe he should have more votes than Jalen Brunson.
So are you disagreeing with user 775 who's cursing you out on YouTube right now?
Probably.
Why, though? Basketball subjective. Look at LaMelo hooping.
It is.
He's getting a bucket.
He's getting lots of buckets. That's true. I think he could do that more efficiently. And I think he could, like...
Oh, brother.
What?
Why do we take efficiency as the norm these days? Could you explain that to me? Efficiency is not like a normal thing. You're not supposed to be very efficient. There's like a whole defense whose whole job is to make you inefficient. Why are we just stamping efficiency as just a normal thing instead of like that's a topper? I'm curious about that these days.
I think on a basic level, because there are so many great players that are game planned against and still get their game off efficiently, like it does kind of set a bar for, if you are a star, I would like to see you do this kind of thing. And within the context of LaMelo, if you have the ball in your hands as much as you do, like you're dictating a lot of what's happening with the offense. Like it's a lot of responsibility that adds the degree of difficulty. But like also when you do take the bad shot or turn the ball over, whatever the case may be, like that's going to hurt your team at a disproportionate rate. Like that's a part of having that kind of role.
But it's not an easy role to do. We did this with Paolo last year too. The context of Orlando and Charlotte's offense, is it ideal for both of their skill sets?
No, especially since LaMelo was just without his best big for a large chunk of the season.
So they have to elevate it. So it's not just a degree of difficulty. It's hard to be efficient in that scenario. If we do this podcast and they tell us, hey, you got 25 minutes You're going to be efficient, right? Is it going to be as good?
I don't know. We kind of hoop, so I mean, we can kind of do what we need.
Please,
but I get your. I do.
Please,
I get
brother,
your point.
brother. I dare you to make a 25. You know what? We'll do it next week. This is a challenge. I want to see what that looks like. I want to see what that looks like.
We got 2 sentences each on something. I don't know. Listen, I can hear the dunkers yelling at us right now.
It's fine.
But no, I do understand your general point. Which again, like that's why I believe like LaMelo's really good. But again, I'm comparing LaMelo to other guards in his conference, and it's like the context isn't great for LaMelo. I think that part is fair. We've been having a conversation about Cade in his context.
Yeah.
Cade's context probably a little bit better than Charlotte's this year. Is that fair? And I think Cade has just flat out had a better year. And like, I don't think I would have Cade over Jalen Brunson to that point. Again, this isn't me saying, to be clear, this isn't me saying LaMelo was bad. I'm just saying if I am splitting hairs with other elite guards in the conference, then like,
here's the real debate is, do you think LaMelo Ball, because here's the thing, you can have your top 4 guards, whatever, order it however you want. It ultimately comes down to a pot of Cade, LaMelo, Jalen Johnson, Evan Mobley.
For like the wild cards, I'm guessing?
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, you can say LaMelo's not having a better year than Jalen Brunson. That's fine. Is he having a good enough year to be an all-star?
And who were the 4? You said Cade, LaMelo, Evan Mobley, and Jalen Johnson? Is that what you said?
It's precisely what I said. You listened to me.
Okay. So, yeah, I just...
So a historic moment in 2025, folks.
Hey, that's crazy. That's crazy. We gonna leave that alone, though. But, like, in a vacuum, is LaMelo playing good enough to be an all... Like, LaMelo has been all-star good. In a world in which we have 12 spots, like, I would have Evan Mobley over LaMelo. I would have Cade over LaMelo. I guess, like, Cade versus Jalen Johnson would probably get dicier. But even then, like, I'm going to care... At a bare minimum, I'm going to care about who's played the most. And like Jalen's been healthier and it's provided more value by virtue of that. And the defense from Jalen has just been better than the defense for LaMelo. So I would probably have the Jalen case over LaMelo too. That's more of strength of conference than, again, LaMelo sucks or anything like that.
Okay. What about Derek White?
like probably Derek. Steve couldn't even hold it. But no, if you're still talking about like near all defense level production, versatile usage offensively, has generally shot well on what, second, third best team in the East? Okay, and again, this is with the under.
So find out you don't have LaMelo as an all-star this year. There's no world you can get in as an all-star.
As of today's date, I guess I'll say that. But as of today's date, like I wouldn't have him in. But again, like when we did the exercise, LaMelo didn't beat the game's play thing for me anyway. So like he wasn't. This is very much great season. Let me see you more.
No, I understand that. But in these questions that I'm asking, I'm starting to gather that I don't think there's a world where Nekias Duncan has LaMelo Ball as an all-star. Because do you think he's better than Tyrese Maxey this year?
That's more of a... That's a fun one.
Oh.
That's a no. What the fuck? That's probably closer. I don't... Ooh, that's a good free throw.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Because you got the wings over him. You got Derek White over him. You got Tyrese. Now he's 8th in the East guards. I got you.
It gets tough as of today, for sure.
We did this exercise. What date was it say on my notes? December 23rd. We are now, how many days is that? 16 days later?
It's been a couple of weeks. Like LaMelo just got back recently.
Okay.
And again, he was an early games played casualty. So like he still has what, like a month to like build the case up more?
Got you. Darius Garland?
Oh, Garland's been better.
Okay, so
Garland was in for me.
We're sliding down.
But no, like Garland was just on my team when we did the exercise a couple weeks ago.
Hey, Tyrese Halliburton?
No, like I will have LaMelo over Tyrese this year.
Wow.
Though Tyrese is playing better as of late, so props to him. But like, no, like I probably have LaMelo over Tyrese.
All right. So we got down to the bottom of that. Did you have any other all-star rants involving this? Any fan bases you're disappointed in for not voting for their players?
I'm a little surprised that Wemby's 5th. Or at the very least, I'm surprised that Wemby doesn't have 1 million votes yet. Like obviously because the next returns come out around 1 Eastern on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously he's going to eclipse that number by then. But I am kind of surprised Wemby's 5th. Like not surprised that LeBron and KD got more votes than Anthony Davis. Like I think Anthony Davis has a better case than LeBron among the Lakers. But like we're talking about the fan voting. Like I thought LeBron was still going to be top 2. So that was part of my surprise. So I'm not surprised that AD's like 4th in voting. Or I'm not surprised AD's behind those guys. A little surprised that like Wemby wouldn't also be above / have the 1 million+ votes on the first returns. I do wonder what this recent surge and him having the back and forth with Jokic and everything, like what that's going to do for this next return. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a jump with Wemby. But like that one kind of popped out for me. Andrew Wiggins, once again, getting the Warriors low. Andrew Wiggins, the Warriors front court rep.
I have a follow-up question. I'm not going to ask it though.
Okay.
But
I would say, I guess as close as I will get to the fan base thing is like, hey, Memphis? With like Jaren at 10, Ja at 7 among the guards. Again, like Ja's missed time, but like clearly that isn't a thing that factors in across the board with some of these voting results, as Paolo has played a whopping 5 games and he is 4th in the East front court. And so like, I guess surprising that Jaren is like Jaren behind Andrew Wiggins as a concept. Like come on, Jaren's been incredible this year. Outside of that, like the Clippers getting James Harden and Norm Powell in the top 10 for the guards is cool. They both had very good seasons.
So just so Memphis knows, that is the opinion of Nekias Earl Duncan. I own a Memphis versus everybody shirt, so leave me alone. That was whichever way I need to point that guy.
That's crazy. Now, this is after I just made the case that Memphis is indeed ready to handle Jimmy Butler and to vault him further into championship. I do not hate Memphis.
No. So you missed the point of my question. That the willing was doing a lot of the work there. But it's fine. We can move on. What's next?
I see what's going on here. Okay, I think that's going to do it for the All-Star stuff. Hey, let's get to some little war talk. We're not going to do defense today. That's going to take some time. Not going to hold you. But we'll get into 6th Man of the Year, Most Improved, Coach of the Year, and Clutch Player of the Year, see where we are as we have got to the turn of the calendar. We're recording on a Monday. So through games played on January 5th, league average for games played is about 35 games. And so if we're sticking to the 65 game threshold, which is roughly 79% of games, you're going to be looking at 27 or 28 games played, depending on how you want to do the rounding, because it's really like 27.65 games. So if you want to round up to 28, you can. If you want to round down to open up the pool, you can get to 27. But either way, around that range to be on pace to reach the 65 games. Notable name for me that's going to be missing from this conversation, at least in depth, unfortunately, would be DeAndre Hunter, who would factor in very heavily for 6th Man of the Year and Most Improved for me, but he's at 25 games as of right now. So naturally, if he stays healthy, keeps playing, he'll be back on track. And again, we could talk about the incredible season that he's had. But like, as we get into the actual ballots, that is going to be the primary reason why he's not in my top 3, 4, 6 man or Most Improved. It's just because of games played, as a quick example. So, Steve, let's talk a little 6th Man of the Year. Games played designation does apply, and the only other requirement from there is you have to have come off the bench in more games than you have started. So do you want me to go first? Because I can.
No, I'll go first because last time we did the award stuff, I went the Nekias route. I went with the Nekias rules. I'm going back to Steve projections. If I think he's going to make the games played, we're just going to go with it and I'll fix it later. So 6th man of the year, third for me is DeAndre Hunter. I think he's been fantastic off the bench. He's been a whole bucket. People tend to like that. Number 2 for me, Russell Westbrook. And let me tell you, folks, Russell Westbrook has been impactful for the Denver Nuggets. I don't really need to do apology tours or victory laps, but a lot of the noise around it hasn't been the same. He's been a competitor. He's got after it on defense. The chemistry he has with Nikola Jokic has been great. The pass and cut between those two. The ability that, hey, I know you're going under. Let's set the screen at the elbow. Let's get rescreens in. If I see your band has helped, I'm getting the ball right to you. All been wonderful stuff. I think he's been really good. Triple-double off the bench this season. That's not easy to do. So Russell Westbrook is 2 for me. Peyton Pritchard is my number 1 right now. Almost every night he's lifting Boston in a different way. So he's my front runner at the current moment.
Okay. Before I reveal mine, can I push back a little bit on Russ?
Sure.
I guess the only thing that I would say with the Russ thing, like, one, I do agree generally that he has been good for Denver. I think what pushes him to like honorable mention for me versus top 3 is, if you are new to the podcast, I am very much when we get to 6 man of the year, what did you do when you were on the bench? And like those are the numbers I look at.
Until Emmanuel Quickly has a run.
I literally use the Emmanuel Quickly bench numbers like that.
Sure.
What you mean?
Sure. Emmanuel Quickly cooks as a starter. Now Nekias says, you know what? I think IQ's all right, man. I know what you are. I understand it now.
The archives exist.
I understand it now.
I see what we're doing here. But like in all seriousness, I think where I struggle with the Russ case for him being top 3, at least right now, is that with him coming off the bench, Nuggets have lost those minutes, hasn't been the most efficient. Box score numbers are still solid, but like those are the 2 things that kind of bring down the case for me in terms of getting him to the top 3. Overall, he's been very good. And like checking earlier today, like the Nuggets have officially won the Russ minutes overall this year. And I think that swing is a lot of what's happened when he joined the starting lineup a few games ago.
Can I push back on all this?
Sure.
Bleep, yeah, your stats are going to look better playing with Nikola Jokic. That's the thing you say to me every year.
Yeah.
That doesn't take away what you've done off the bench.
I guess for me, like, I am very much a stickler for that kind of thing. Like, I've said that on here. Like, if you are going to be the most impactful 6 man across the league for me, like, I want your team to outscore the other team when you are on the court. Like, that's a baseline for me. And so, like,
so if your team doesn't outscore, like you play a good team and their starters have extended minutes and your unit gets crushed, you're no longer impactful?
It gets tougher. Like, I understand the overall point that you're making, but I'm just saying, like, that is something that I look at.
Okay, so give me your 3. Give me your 3, big dog. We'll continue this. Don't worry about it.
Okay, fair enough.
How much time we got?
How much time we got? But no. As for me, like I mentioned, Russ honorable mention for me right now. Santi Aldama, an honorable mention for me right now. Currently out with the ankle injury, so we'll see where he ends up landing when he ultimately returns. But like, Santi's been very good. 13-7 off the bench. Memphis has been insane when he's been on the floor. Number 3, I have Karis LeVert. 11 points, 3 boards, 4 assists. As mentioned on the last episode of the Duncan Spot, if you want to check that out, like refining the shot profile, very much I am getting all the way downhill or I am taking these threes and he is shooting the leather off the ball right now.
Can I pause real quick?
Sure.
Where'd you have Karis LeVert last year?
I think Karis was honorable mention for me, if I remember correctly. I can cycle through the notes real quick.
This is an efficiency bit and the Cavs are good?
He's gotten better.
He's averaging less points, taking less shots. So it's efficiency, and the Cavs are really good.
Making a big move, yeah. Continues to compete defensively. I think the playmaking's been good, and ultimately, again, shooting well. Number 2 for me, I have Amin Thompson. 11 points, a little under 7 boards a game in his reserve games. 2 assists, a steal, and nearly a block. Rockets plus 7.5 with him on the floor this year.
What were his reserve numbers again? I'm sorry.
Reserve numbers: 11.1 points, 6.6 rebounds, 2.2 assists, a steal, and 0.8 blocks.
Okay, we'll circle back to that.
Okay. And number 1 for me is also Peyton Pritchard.
Nice. Why Peyton Pritchard?
The scoring has been kind of nuts. I have also enjoyed the go screen and usage from him. The defense has been pretty solid, though I will note Boston didn't seem to want to play Peyton Pritchard all that much against OKC. I think it was 11 minutes in the showcase over the weekend. But in general, he has been pesky at the point of attack when they've asked him to switch. He's been really good at getting out of there when they try to scram him out. And again, offensively, been really good in pick and roll. He's knocked down shots from pretty much everywhere. 3-point shooting's been absurd. The deep shots have very much been loud and impactful for Boston. And Boston blitzing teams when he's been on the floor this year.
Is that because Boston's very good as well?
They are very good, and he helps.
Okay. Who do you have for Coach of the Year?
Was that the circle back portion?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Want to make sure I didn't miss anything. For Coach of the Year, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Coach of the Year, I have Kenny Atkinson 1. I have Mark Daigneault 2. I have Taylor Jenkins at 3.
Kenny Atkinson is 1 for me. Mark Daigneault is 2 for me. My third is going to be Joe Mazzulla.
I like it. Any other coaches you considered to get into the top 3? Or any other coaches you want to shout out?
Well, I want to shout out all of them. I think there's a lot of good coaching that's being done. Like, I think if you want to give credit, you can give salutes to Quinn Snyder for what he's done in Atlanta. I think Rick Carlisle's figured some things out in Indiana. J.D. Bickerstaff's gotten Detroit into a different stratosphere. Doc Rivers pushed Milwaukee in a different space. I think Ime Udoka has gotten Houston to improve on both ends of the floor. Coach Michael Malone has held Denver together and elevated them. We've seen what JJ's done with the Lakers as far as trying to figure out the offense and the defense at the same time. Ty Lue has made the Clippers into what they are, and now you realize, they get Kawhi Leonard back. So I think there's, as always, a lot of great coaching jobs in the league right now. Tibbs, with what he's done offensively for the Knicks. You could even mention Jamal Mosley. I don't think he gets the same level of equity because he got it last year, but keeping that group together despite everyone getting hurt. Coaching's been phenomenal across the league, and I wish more people recognized it and realized it and understood what these coaches do to help these teams be good as opposed to just assuming that they're not that great. But I don't have time for that rant today.
Fair enough. Well, you stepped all over all the honorable mentions that I had, so I did not have to hang there too long.
You should have known not to swing the ball to me there.
Hey, I just wanted to give you the floor. My fault. But most improved, Steve, who do you have?
Most improved player?
Yeah.
Oh, how can you go first on this one? Because I'm trying to see what the vibe is going to be because y'all messed most improved up so much. You know what? Actually,
y'all.
Yeah. Did you pick Ja Morant to win most improved player, sir?
He ended up being my pick. I don't have an official ballot. So, I mean, there's only so much blame I can take in this conversation.
Had you had an official ballot, it would have been cast for Ja Morant. No disrespect to Ja Morant, but you would have been part of the problem. Get your semantics out of here, pal. My 3, I have Cam Johnson 3rd. I have Trey Murphy the 3rd, 2nd. I have Jalen Johnson 1st. I have done my best to mash up what the modern basketball discusser likes to enjoy in the most improved player with what I feel in my heart. I have a subset list of 6 names that I'm staring at right now. If any of them appear on your 3, I will yell.
Well, now I'm a little worried. I don't know how I'm going to feel about this. Oh, boy. Okay, so with most improved, I mentioned the DeAndre Hunter thing in terms of games played. So, he would very much just be in my top 3. But he's at 25 games right now. Trey Murphy III is at 23 games, so he's another guy that I would love to seriously consider and probably will later in the year, assuming he stays healthy. But currently out right now. Number 1 for me is also Jalen Johnson. Roughly 4 more points than last year, an extra board, nearly 2 more assists. Steals and blocks are up, converting 58% of his twos, shooting 33% from 3. That's dipped from early in the year. Defense has markedly improved. Still another level for him to get to. So he could be like all world on that end because the athleticism surely pops, and Atlanta just sends two all over the place. So they kind of need him to run around. But Jalen Johnson's been very good. Santi Aldama, second for me right now. Nearly 3 more points, board and a half more, nearly an assist more, steals are up. He's doing this while playing fewer minutes. And again, like him saying, Memphis dealing with the early injuries, like, hey, Santi, we need you to play some 3 for us. And him ultimately being able to hold up there, getting more responsibility as a grab-and-go threat. I think the defense has been a little bit better than what it was last year on top of that. I like the Santi case. At least throw the name in there. Number 3 for me, I have Norman Powell, who is averaging nearly 10 more points per game than he did last year. Well, there's the quick yell. But Norm's been insane and has had to fill a pretty big void while Kawhi has been out. So I wanted to give him the nod there. In terms of honorable mentions, we got Cam Johnson. We got Tyler Hero. We have... Okay. We have Jay Huff. The case that I struggled most
Jay Huff.
If we have the if we're going old school rules, okay. Hey, we ain't think you were good, and now you in the rotation doing good stuff. It's fine. But anyway, he's a name that I thought about putting in my honorable mentions.
Hold on.
The case that I had...
I'm pausing your honorable mention real quick because my brain can't process this. Because you did not give Desmond Bane any sort of thought about most improved player when you said Ja, but you have now told me 2 Memphis Grizzlies right now, and I know Santi is just because of efficiency, because he's shooting better, and so my brain is broken about that. And then also, you didn't think Karis LeVert was a 6th man of the year last year because it was just buckets, and now he makes a couple more, takes a couple less, and Cleveland's good. Now he's 6th man. I need amnesia.
Well, 1, every season is different. 2,
oh God, just go back to your honorable mention.
Okay, we'll talk about it off the air. That's fine. But the case that I had issue trying to parse through was Jalen Williams in OKC.
Also on my list.
Hey, when you know your co-host. But like, the box score numbers are up. He has defended better. He has had to take on a lot more responsibility and slide up and down the positional spectrum, especially in light of that no center stretch that OKC had to go through. Efficiency is down. And so it's one of those, like, Jalen Williams is a better basketball player this year than he was last year. I guess trying to make the case that he has improved more than anyone else is where I kind of struggle on that front. So, like, he's an honorable mention for now. It wouldn't surprise me if by the next time we do this, that he slides into my top 3. But like right now is just trying to parse through, like, he's gotten better. Has he gotten better than Jalen Johnson? Or has he had more improvement than Jalen Johnson, I would say. So like Jalen Williams is an interesting case for me, but he at least deserves to have his name said because he has been very good. Dyson Daniels, another guy that I think deserves a shout. I'm trying to think, is there anyone else that I'm going to give some love to here? I guess we'll leave it for now. But those would be the names. I guess to close things out, Steve, who would be your clutch player of the year?
Nikola Jokic 1, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander 2, Jalen Brunson 3.
Okay. Pretty good list. We both have Jokic at 1, so no real questions there. I guess my hot take of the awards thing is like I would have Garland 2 right now. And it's clutch player. So I would have Garland 2. And like it gets interesting for me because 1, Cleveland has been so freaking good. It's 13 clutch games for Garland. They're 11-2 in those clutch games. Leads the NBA in clutch plus minus if you care about that. He has shot 80% inside the arc during clutch time. He's 50% from 3. Hasn't missed a free throw on top of that. 7 assists to 1 turnover. He's the best clutch pick and roll player in the league. Nearly 1.4 points per possession on any trip featuring a Garland pick and roll in clutch time. 1.3 points per possession in ISO. When he's been put in action, when he's defending the on-ball screen, is 0.8 points per possession, which is absurd. When put in action, Garland's man screens for whoever it is 1.06 points per possession, which isn't great. When asked to switch, that's at a flat point per possession, which is solid. We saw a lot of that. You know, we've referenced the Cleveland Boston game for a while ago and how well he held up. I think the second one as an example there. But no, he's held up defensively. He has shepherded an elite of elite offense during that time. And so I guess if you want to call that hot takey or off the wall, that's fine. But I would have Garland 2 right now. Now I'll go Shea 3.
So I have a question for you. When's the last time the Cleveland Cavaliers played a clutch game? Because they have literally won 9 straight games by 10 or more points. And then three of them. Have they played a clutch game in since November?
It's been a minute. I think it's up to 10 now. They became the 4th team in NBA history to win 10 straight games by double digits.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about it, King? Is this just the Boston game? Like, who are these clutch games?
There was a Boston game. There was a Boston game. I think there was either 1 or 2 Atlanta games. Him and Trey went back and forth. Trying to remember which other ones were in there. I get the actual just full sample.
It's a Milwaukee game too, or something like that. This is November shenanigans from you.
That man hooped.
It's been waiting. Been waiting for this moment.
I'll give Darius Garland some love on that front. But again, like Jokic, I think is just the winner right now. I think I would say keep an eye on the Wemby case and keep an eye on the Giannis case, as I have long been a stickler for, hey, we should probably consider like clutch defense a little bit more than we do when it comes to this award.
Okay.
And so like, I think both of them at minimum are going to be, so like Shea's had some big plays defensively in the clutch. Matter of fact, we just saw the Shea, well, actually that was a third quarter block, wasn't it? The block on Tatum. So that wouldn't have become in clutch time. But in general, like Shea has made some big plays late in games for OKC. But that would be my 3 for now. I guess due to time constraints, do you just want to end with the comment?
Yeah, let's go on the block with Nekias Duncan, sponsored by no one. Again, hit that like button. Comment below. Your comment could be read by the great Nekias Duncan. What do we have this week, Nekias?
All right. Well, this comment, shout out to like 7 different bullet points in this comment. So really listen to the full pod and had things to say about just about everything, which I say that complimentary. So I like that. I love the in-depth, I listen to this and these are my thoughts versus I listen to 16 seconds. This is an opinion I don't like. Yeah. Close out. So this one coming from Michael D. Camilla, 3248, who says, so much in this pod to shout out. First, Gimli voice, not the beard. Steve Wyatt in parentheses. Second of all, personal theory is that the Cavs won't get an all-star starter this year. The minutes workload is just too spread out. Mitchell is averaging the most at just under 32 minutes per game, which is absurd. He's got the largest workload and still on average for every 2 minutes that he's on the court, he's getting 1 minute of rest. So the individual numbers, which shouldn't be decisive, but could be, don't look as good. Hoping I'm wrong. Third, I also hate to see the Mike Brown firing. I remember last year when I was skeptical of JB Bickerstaff on the Cavs and even said so in a watch party. But Steve gave me some perspective. Now I know how lucky the Cavs were to have Bickerstaff, even with how well they are doing under Atkinson, which leads me to a question. Fourth, do y'all think that the discourse around coaches will get worse if the replacements for good coaches do well? I see quite a few Cavs fans still pinning the blame on Bickerstaff because of how well the Cavs have played under Atkinson. I have even seen some compare Bickerstaff to Mark Jackson in Golden State. Heck, even I made that comparison last year before I saw the light. It seems to me that scenarios like Bickerstaff-Atkinson will make the issue of good coaches getting blamed for their team struggles even worse. Fifth, shout out to the editor for the doubt edit. 10 out of 10. Sixth, shout out to Mark Schindler, it sounded like him, for his unintentional cameo via Steve's YouTube. And shout out to the editor again for leaving it in. And finally, as a Cavs fan, even I think the Evan Mobley MVP case is a stretch, as big of a stretch as Mobley's wingspan. I love that he is driving. I love that he's shooting threes with confidence at about Okoro's volume and knocking them down at 42%. He seems so comfortable in this offense, and his defense has been incredible as always. He still would need another leap to even reach the honorable mentions for MVP, in my honest opinion. S-tier pod as always. Everyone come check out the watch parties on playback. The link is in the description.
W comment. I feel like you're trying to set a standard here. Outside of that just being a massively W comment. I like it. Very, very good stuff.
I think that's good stuff. That's good stuff.
To the question inside, do I think coaching discourse gets worse? I think it's an easy thing to talk about. If Team X was this and then coach comes in and now Team X is that, well, hey, now look, we got this coach and he's doing this different. Thank God we don't have to talk about thing I don't like about the previous coach. Like that's never going to go away. I'm sure someone's doing it in Sacramento right now. Like, oh, look, they're playing with belief. You know, I was going to say Doug Christie is coach of the year for the bit, but I can't do it. Hey, Nekias, can I ask you a crucial free throw?
Sure.
Who averages more assists off the bench, Russell Westbrook or Amen Thompson?
Russ, I would imagine.
Who averages more steals off the bench, Russell Westbrook or Amen Thompson?
You're asking, so it's probably Russ. I will counter ask you a question. Who do you feel is a better defender between Amen Thompson and Russell Westbrook?
I didn't ask that question. I asked who
I know. I asked that question.
I did you see Russell Westbrook defend Wemby?
He sure did. Wait a minute, did Amen also get a crack at Wemby?
Did you see Russell Westbrook defend Wemby?
Okay. Sure did. He got on the floor, got a steal, pulled the ball away. It's good stuff.
And Nekias, who's a better 3-point shooter off the bench, Russell Westbrook or Amen Thompson?
I feel like the answer to that is just no. I ain't gonna hold you.
What you mean? Who's better? Who's literally better?
It's probably Russ.
It is.
That Amen jumper is it's gonna take a little time. It's gonna take a little time.
Blocks are 0.8 to 0.7. Points 11.4 to 11.1 in Russ' favor. I don't know. I don't know if your little argument holds up, bud.
Hey, listen. You are more than welcome to that opinion. That's fine.
How many triple doubles does Amen have off the bench?
I don't think he has one.
Do you know who does have one?
I think Russell Westbrook does.
Russell Westbrook does.
Hey, there you go.
That's good stuff. Hey, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
Who's a better player, Josh Hart or Evan Mobley?
Evan Mobley to me.
Who has a better true shooting percentage?
Probably Josh Hart. If you're asking, it's probably Josh Hart. No, Josh Hart has like shot the leather off the ball this year.
I think there
was a recent athletic story I want to say.
Efficiency doesn't matter.
Hey, if that's the point you want to make, by all means, brother. Did you have any more questions for me?
Who's got a better true shooting percentage, Nikola Vucevic or Nikola Jokic?
Well, probably Vooch. Then Jokic just had the whole bit where he was just missing layups that he normally makes. This is just a down year for Jokic at the rim, right? It certainly has felt that way at the very least. I can pull it up real quick.
It's all good. Do you have any free throws, friend?
No, I feel like I got mine out during. No, I'll reserve free throws for the next podcast.
Oh, okay. All right. I've heard that for 17 consecutive podcasts. It hit the horns.
Oh,
Richie, can I once again for a second straight week just get doubt right there after you said that? Just get quick doubt.
Are we going to make the doubt a reoccurring thing? Also, Nikola Jokic, 65.5% inside of 3 feet per Basketball Reference. That would be the lowest since his rookie season. So we'll see if that perks back up. But thank you for listening to and or watching this episode of The Dunker Spot. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We are on Apple, Spotify, RIP Google, Stitcher, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. And if you are watching this and you got to see the Steve reactions and the doubt memes, etc., we are here every Tuesday. That is the day after Monday, the day before Wednesday. So if you want the visual element, come rock with us every Tuesday. Naturally, we'll be back later in the week with an audio-only episode, but come check us out. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Nekias NBA. You can follow Steve on Blue Sky at SteveJones20. Join the online Dunker Spot watch parties that was referenced in that awesome YouTube comment. We are watching hoops. If you have a League Pass subscription, sync that to your profile. That is free to create and watch some hoops with us. Talk some hoops, ask some questions. We also get random. We will. I guess we have to see what happens with wrestling now since Raw is moving to Netflix. So I guess we can't put that up on screen anymore. But we'll have wrestling conversations. We'll have random video game streams. We do a little bit of everything. So if you want an awesome place to hang out with some cool peeps, come rock with us. The link is in the description. And with that, we will catch y'all later in the week.
Bye.